So we must do two things, two great things together to encompass that enormous new view that lies before us, but to encompass it within the framework of science, to see it within the whole categorical framework of science, and to see that these two are not separate, but that they are wedded. The bigness of the idea, the newness of the idea, the greatness of it is one with the structure of science, the structure of being itself.
And so one began to see at the close of that summer school that there was a shift in consciousness, that there was a need now to focus on the calculus, to begin to see how the 7 are set in the calculus, how the 7 days, you see, are held in the calculus, in the 4, and consequently how the 7,000-year periods, those periods in which the timeless stamps time with being and really puts time into the services of the timeless. Isn't that beautiful? That time has no other real purpose except to serve the timelessness of being, except to show how being is becoming. That nothing else is going on but the fact that being is becoming what it is. Where? In science itself, in divine science, in absolute Christian science? No. Being doesn't need to become what it is at those levels. But at a level where we are dealing with the claim, the supposition of a mortal concept, a time concept, a temporal concept, we need something that will show us the way out of that ignorance, out of that darkness, and into the full light of the timelessness and eternity of being. That's what the 7,000-year periods show. So often a newly interested student will come along and say, why do you talk so much about time? Why are you so interested in periods of time, 7,000-year periods and so forth? As though we would be pointing up or, making a reality out of time. Whereas those 7,000-year periods, as states and stages of consciousness, begin to explain to us, to make understandable to us the fact that there actually is no time. And how do we reach the point of understanding that there is no time? By seeing the whole time concept give way through states and stages of consciousness that are patterned by the nature of God, being itself, by the eternality, the eternity of mind, spirit, soul, principle, life, truth, and love, impacting the mortal consciousness, the claim that there is not that eternal fact going on, that everything else is going on but that eternal fact, everything that we have to wrestle with and struggle with on this plane of consciousness, on a plane of consciousness where there's a claim of two, that has to be resolved. And it is resolved by the divine nature, by the fourfold operation, through the days of creation, which gradually gather their reality within consciousness and become for us numerals of infinity. Remember, if you know John Dorley, have read anything of John Dorley, how he would so often speak about the days of creation becoming numerals of infinity, numerals of consciousness. So that what begins as, and looks like a developing sense, that we develop and develop from one stage to the next stage to the following stage, gradually we begin to be reformed in consciousness and to realize that actually there is no development going on. You see, it's as we make our way in that way of that being is becoming for us. I don't know how else to say it, that what being is becoming for us what it is, isn't it? You see that? And that's the story that is built into the 7 days of creation, and it is built into the 7,000-year periods, showing us the impact of the timelessness of being on time, so that time finally gives way. And I think that for those of you who have cultured this, who have loved this over the years, and it doesn't come in a moment, it doesn't come overnight. You will be touched by it. You can be touched by it in a moment. You can be touched by it overnight. You can feel change. You can feel, I see something new. I'm going in a new direction. I have a new hope, a new purpose, and a new design, a new pattern to pursue, to persevere in accord with. But you'll find that new birth, as she says about the new birth, begins with moments, but it goes on with years. It goes on with years. So that when you take up the pursuit of, the love of the science of being, don't feel it's going to, that it's the work of a moment. That's, I think, what she says. It's not the work of a moment. It begins with moments and goes on with years. So it's not a fly-by-night thing, as though I can dabble into the science of being and then I go and I dabble into something else and I just dabble. I'm a professional dabbler. I know about everything, every ism, every ology, every so-called science, small s, every psychology and philosophy and everything that's out there. And I sort of classify the science of being as one of those many things. One of those many things. No. When you touch the science of being, you touch the thing itself. It's the thing itself. Isn't that what they always referred to in philosophy when they wanted to get to the essence, the core, the reality, the real thing that every man is really after, is the thing itself. And that's what you have in science, in the science of being. And it has no comparison. It has nothing, it's not carrying along a lot of trappings with it, other things from the world and other pursuits. It's single, it's only, it's holy, it's one. And that's what we have to be when we find science and we are touched by it and we feel something. Maybe someone is here tonight who hasn't ever heard anything about this science, and perhaps you'll be touched by it in some way. Something that is said or something that someone says to you will touch you. Take that and keep it single, keep it pure, keep it only. That means to love it. Begin to love it. Say there's something of promise in that. There's something that I want. Something that is of meaning to me. I want that. That thing that I feel I can't quite get my hands on it yet. I don't know what they're talking about with all these 7s and 4s and levels and so forth. And don't let that be a put off for you. Take the thing you hear that you love and keep on loving it and pursue it. Go after it. Keep it single and keep it separate from everything else in the world. Everything else. Don't compare that with, I'm reading some other book on so-and-so, and so I mix them all up together, mix everything up together, and it's just one big conglomeration that doesn't really have a clarity. It doesn't have a clean line. It doesn't have a direct line. It hasn't told me what I'm really after and how to get there. And what you're after and how to get there are the same thing. They're the same thing. What you are after is the divine nature. And how you will get there is through the divine nature. What you're after is the divine operation. To have God being the one operating principle in your life, in your existence. And how you will get that is by going that way, by going through the divine operation. So the goal and the method, the way to the goal, are the same thing. It's so beautiful. It's not that you have a goal and then you say, oh my gosh, how am I going to get there? And oh, I have to read this book and read that book and do exercises and laws and meditate and pray and whatever things we think we have to do to reach a standpoint of consciousness, a form of consciousness that is ideal. Whereas in the science of being, the moment you touch the categories, you touch that consciousness. You're one with that consciousness. You're in that consciousness. When you touch the 7 synonymous terms and their ideas, you are some measure one with the 7 synonymous terms and their ideas. One with the nature of God. One with the nature of God. And that nature has built into it the calculus. In other words, it knows how to get you. Beautiful. It knows how to get you, how to draw you in. Sometimes love plays tricks on us. Beautiful tricks of love to get us in. And to draw us in even more, So we get drawn in and drawn in. It's the attraction of love, the attractor of love. Because those 7 are love, those 4 are love, they're divine love, they're the divine principle. Love, which has a design, has a purpose to save all, to save you. So you are drawn in. You are attracted by them. Now, you can respond to that as your nature, which is of the same nature as God's nature, can give something to that process, to that operation. So you can give your best to this fact that something has touched you and that there's something that you want to pursue, something that you want to see more. You already have the divine nature within you. This is actually what the chapter on prayer would show us. The very first chapter in the Christian Science textbook would show us that we really already reflect the divine. We have the divine within us. So I can say to that little spark that I have seen, to that glimmer, to that light, to that thing that I hear and I love and I feel the promise about, I want that. That's what I want. That's my heart's desire. I desire that. So you know how that first chapter of prayer begins with the desire within us. It says, actually, that desire is the desire of mind. It's mind within you. It's mind, capital M, within you, that wants this idea, that is drawn. That's why we're all here tonight together, because we are already one with the divine mind. We already have the divine mind within us, because we want this idea. We desire it. We want to pursue it. And then we would see that actually we have all those beautiful qualities that we can put into the service of that desire, the desire for that idea, that we would be grateful, to be grateful for what we have seen about this idea. To be grateful, were you ever just grateful that God is sevenfold in nature? And what that sevenfold nature is. I know that you have been, huh? Ever been just grateful that God, Spirit, is mind, spirit, soul, principle, life, truth, and love. To be grateful, to love that fact, to carry that fact around, to begin to weigh it. We spend so much of our day time and night time weighing and carrying around other things, don't we? Weighing the consideration whether we should do this or do that, whether we should take this step or not take this step, or what we should pursue as our career and how to go about that, weighing all kinds of things. But I wonder how much time we spend weighing mind and spirit. If you weigh something, you say, what's the difference between? What's the value of mind in comparison to? In comparison to spirit. When I weigh things, when I weigh values, they become more distinct. They become distinct values. Gosh, this is all spirit. We are talking about that second standpoint. So they become more distinct. They become more distinct. They become clearer, even more definite, you see. And so whatever touches you in this class, I hope something does, begin to weigh it. Begin to ask these questions. How is this different than what I've seen in the world and what I have found in the world as those isms and ologies and different psychologies and philosophies that would attempt to solve the question of being, the problems of my existence? How is this different? You know, you'll only find out how it's different by going to the 7 and to the 4. This is how you will find out the difference between what the science of being is giving you, the love of the science of being, the love of the divine principle is giving you, versus what the world has to offer. So you give your very best qualities to the vision that you've seen, to that insight, to that touch. And you begin to become very definite about that. That would be soul, wouldn't it? So that soul says you have to make that a rule in your life now. Soul is all to do with the rule of soul. And it means that whatever you have done at the point of mind and of spirit, you must do again and again and again and again and again, so you get that reiteration of soul, that true sense of repeating. It's not a repeating, it's a reiterating. It's a self-referral of constantly referring back. In other words, don't drop what you see as your vision after 2 or 3 days. Let it go, having given some love to it, some weighing, some consideration, some pondering, that you would let it go. Soul says, don't let it go. Keep going back to it. Return to it. Return. Very much what you had in the 4,000 year period with the prophets who were bringing in the sense of the coming age of the Christ, and this sense of, excuse me, I just am assuming that you know so much, and I don't know whether you really know so much or not, but it's that they would say to Israel, return to the Lord, return. Go back again to that which you know. So if they were in the 4,000 year period, it was as though they would say, go back to your vision of the first 1,000 year period. Go back to your second 1,000 year period where you kept that vision pure, where you built that ark of understanding, where you got into the ark, where you rode over the floods, where you never let go of that vision, where it just followed you and you stuck to it. You stayed with it. Return to your third 1,000 year period where you went constantly back to the first and the second. See, it was going back to the first and the second that enabled the children of Israel to go through the wilderness, not to stop somewhere else, not to stay in Egypt. So these are qualities that are within us all to be called upon, to be reflected.